My name's Sarah Clark. I look after the Legal Director's commercial strategy, liaise with our partners, many of whom are here today. And my background is as a lawyer. I was a barrister by training, and then I moved in-house to become a general counsel, which is what all of our 52 GCs do at the Legal Director. And that is quite enough about me, I would say. So let's begin. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm an AI expert. I most certainly am not. There are much more equipped people to talk about the finer details of AI than me today. I'm here to talk to you about the legal implications that might crop up in your business. And the reason that I can do that is because I talk to all of our 52 fractional general counsel who play back to me the kinds of problems that our clients are encountering in the market. Because obviously things are moving at such a pace within AI at the moment, probably a pace that we've never encountered before. And so almost everything that I'm going to tell you today is we don't know yet, I'm afraid. So spoiler alert, there it is. This is a quote from Douglas Adams in The Salmon of Tao. Anything that is in the world when you're born is normal and ordinary, and it's just a natural part of the way the world works. Anything that's been invented between when you're 15 and 35 is new and exciting and revolutionary, and you can probably get a career in it. That anything invented after you're 35 is against the natural order of things. And I am most certainly over the age of 35. So how are decisions made today? Now, since the 40s, there's just been this influx of data in our businesses and this increase in statistical analysis. And really, that's how AI came to be developed in the first place. In fact, it took its beginnings in Google Translate, amongst other things, because of this influx of data that we've all got in our businesses, which is what is feeding the AI models that we see today. AI isn't intelligent, and it isn't magic, and I think probably everyone in this room knows that. It's all about machine learning, neural networks, chain of thought, decision trees, correlations, matrices, and data sets. And so effectively, it's not thinking, it is working entirely based on probability. So when you put something into ChatGPT, you'll watch it come across the screen, word after word after word after word, as it flows, and it's just predicting the probability that the next word is the best word to put in that sequence. There's a lot of maths involved, and I most certainly am not a mathematician. But data is now in abundance, and that is why AI now, it's why we have this AI revolution, because we have all of this data that I referred to in our businesses. And it's been estimated that in 2024, there were 149 zettabytes of data created, captured, copied, and consumed. And that is a number that I can't even comprehend, but it's 21 zeros after the one. And they estimate that in 2025, that number will increase to 181 zettabytes, which is to the power of 24. So this is all to do with the increase in computing power to facilitate this massive, massive abundance of data. So AI is nothing new. It's been around for a long time. We've seen AI in weather forecasting, again, based on probability, and it's able to increase in accuracy because of the abundance of data layering upon the statistical point after statistical point. You're seeing it now in your cars with lane assist and the advances in automated driving. We're beginning to use AI in identifying certain types of cancer, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And you'll see it in your everyday lives, in your houses. If you watch Squid Game on Netflix, all of a sudden it's going to use probability to project that you also want to watch every other Korean TV show ever made. So I'm here to talk about legal considerations, and I've already given you the spoiler alert that there is a lot of unknown. So the regulatory compliance piece is governed by the UK GDPR. And it's important to note that under UK GDPR, text and data mining for commercial purposes is prohibited. And that's not the same globally. That is a UK-specific piece of compliance legislation. Data processing, also governed by UK GDPR. And that's important because we need to be thinking about who is processing the data that we put into these large language models and where is it going? And so from the point of view of your businesses, you need to be thinking about what you're plugging into what systems and what's then happening to it because of the knock-on legal consequences that could flow from that. And we'll touch on that a little bit more in due course. And then obviously another consideration is to be thinking about cyber data breaches. This data that you're putting into a system, what happens if it leaks? What happens if it gets out there? What mitigations are you and your businesses putting in place to protect not only your commercially sensitive confidential information, but also your customer data? So that's really important as well. So a really important thing to note is the UK GDPR prohibits decision-making concerning a person when it's based solely on automated decision-making, which has a legal effect. So I'm thinking there'll be all kinds of examples in this room, I'm sure, that if you think about insurance, for example, and the kind of algorithms that sit behind underwriting in insurance policies, they need to be layering in here what they call a human in the loop. And if you've read much about AI, what you'll understand is that if there's a legal effect generated by automated decision-making, that is prohibited, that creates a breach unless you're factoring in a human in the loop. And so in terms of your own compliance, you need to be thinking about policies, documenting where that human in the loop is, and then making sure that you're policing those policies. So text and data mining in the UK under the Copyright Design and Patents Act is not permitted for commercial purposes. So that sounds quite straightforward, but there's no definition under the Act as to what constitutes text and data mining. And the prohibition is against large quantities, effectively, of data being processed, being text and data mined. There's not a definition of what amounts to a large volume of data either. Is it one page of A4? Is it 500 pages of A4? Is it entire databases? We don't know. So I'm afraid I can't stand up here and give you answers, but it's something that you and your businesses, as this plays out in due course and developments emerge, need to be keeping an eye on, because if those questions are answered, it might potentially affect some of the processes that you're following in your businesses. And obviously, if you are uploading information into an LLM, into the OpenAI model or into another large language model, then the analysis that is being done of that information potentially amounts to text and data mining. And so it's one of these things that's going to be constantly evolving, and we need to keep an eye on it. So are you mining? Are you mining your customer data? Are you mining information that is commercially sensitive or in some other way protected or subject to copyright of somebody else? But also, are other people mining your commercially sensitive information and your confidential information? And so that's something that we're seeing a lot across our kind of client base. And one of the ways we're seeing it is in non-disclosure agreements, for example. There's now standard clauses being put into non-disclosure agreements when you're sharing information with other parties for commercial purposes, to ensure that in the course of that relationship under that NDA, your information isn't being mined. And so that's something that I think probably most people in this room need to have one eye on. What's happening to the data that you're sharing with other parties under commercial discussions, for example? Ownership of AI-created works, and this is a really, really grey area. So who owns the copyright in material that is generated by AI, by a large language model? And so if you're somebody who is quite au fait with AI and you're using AI to ideate, create documents, create ideas, who is it who actually becomes the copyright owner in that material? The answer is, we don't know. There's a theme here. Is it potentially the AI model itself? Well, under the Copyright Design and Patents Act, it would need to be a person. And clearly, OpenAI, for example, is not a person, but a program. So that's something that's going to end up being discussed, debated, and probably decided upon at some time in due course. But the little asterisk is there because in South Africa, for example, because these kinds of legislative and litigation changes will happen at different points across the globe at different times. And in South Africa, it's been decided that an AI model can be a copyright owner. And so that's a really interesting development from overseas. Use of third-party data and IP, obviously there could be protected intellectual property in material that you are uploading into large language models for the kinds of work you're doing. What we often see is it might not be people uploading something that is exclusively the IP of somebody else, but it might be mixed. There might be some commercial material that is mixed with your material and a third-party material which contains protected intellectual property. So really important to just keep an eye on that and be aware of the knock-on consequences that could flow down the road. And then the question of whether AI-generated inventions meet legal requirements for patent protection. And again, there are a lot of AI-generated products being looked at for patent, and we don't currently have an answer about that one either. So AI risk considerations. Within your businesses, who is accountable for AI and what is the chain of liability for an AI model? So if something is produced by AI in your business and it causes a problem somewhere down the track, so it causes a problem with a third party, or that AI generated information turns out to be incorrect or flawed in some way, we are still in the dark about what is the chain of liability because of all of those other question marks that I've just outlined as to who would be liable. And so we can expect to see a real influx of litigation and trying to answer this exact question. There's also this inherent question around bias and discrimination within AI models. If you always remember that within an AI model, it's only ever working on the basis of the information it's been given. So the data that model has been trained on. And so what you'll see if you're working within ChatGPT, for example, which is mostly trained in the States, is that the output is very American. And so that kind of level of influence can lead to bias and discrimination. So if you are creating large language models within your businesses and you are training it on data, there may be a bias towards something that's contained within your data set that leads to kind of wonky decisions being made at the other end, generating some kind of discrimination. So it's really important that we come back to this. The model is only ever as good as the data that we put into it. And if you were to ask ChatGPT to generate a picture of a baby, for example, it will 99 times out of 100 be a white Caucasian baby because of the way that the model has been trained and the inherent bias in the model. So just something to have on your kind of corporate risk register, maybe, just kind of keep it under review. AI in contracts and consumer protection, again, coming back to that point about human in the loop, making sure that any kind of decision that's made in an automated way that has an impact, a legal consequence for people, complies with GDPR, and the processes involve a human in the loop, because otherwise you're exposing yourself to risk within your businesses there. And then internal risks. So I suspect that my colleagues are going to talk to you all about the opportunities of AI. And I personally, in my very commercial role in the business, am super pro AI. I use it every single day. I use it for ideating. I'm a huge fan. Having said that, you need to make sure that you're controlling it within your business. And at least that whilst you're doing all of these exciting projects and developments and asking your team, if you have that kind of risk appetite, to go out and try things, come up with projects and ideas that are going to push the business forward. Because really, if you're not doing that, there's a risk of being left behind. It's a case of weighing those risks in the balance, because how do you know what your very eager workforce are doing with AI? What are they doing with your confidential and commercial data? What are they doing with your customer data? And how are you policing that internally? And it's like any other kind of change management program. I would advocate a very open and transparent way of discussing AI within your teams so that people are reporting back. There's some sort of feedback loop for reporting back use cases of AI so that you as a business are able to keep track of what is actually going in where, and making sure that you've got an internal AI use policy that says what you want it to say and isn't just lifted from a template you found somewhere on the internet. We've definitely seen quite a few of those. And you're conducting regular compliance audits, having real human oversight mechanisms within your team. And I would say that open dialogue, encouraging innovation, encouraging people to think innovatively about AI, but also report back what they're planning to do with it so that you're creating that sort of risk checkpoint within your businesses. So clarity in contracting. When I say that here, what I mean is if you're contracting with developers to create AI models or processes within your business, and I suspect quite a lot of you either are or will be, then it's really important that you have that legal oversight over what the contract actually says. Do you own the model at the end of the development, or does the developer own it? Are you buying a license to use a model, and what are the knock-on consequences of that? So the detail of the contract under which you're doing development of AI is really, really important. And then obviously, when you're using models, the model is ever evolving. So you will be inputting data into a model that you created, and that data is influencing the way the model works. So the model is ever evolving. The IP within that model is ever evolving, and it's really important to factor that into your cost base, your business processes, your compliance processes, to keep that ongoing maintenance and loop under control. And then obviously on a purely practical basis, as I said, the way the data changes the model and what that means for your business and effectively cost over time. Obviously, if you're in a service industry, which we are, then there's the potential devaluation of services. I would say we're very far away from lawyers being replaced by AI, and I say that based on the use cases of AI in legal that I'm seeing come across our desk. We're getting a lot of examples pushed through our kind of conversation groups within the team of my client asked me to review this contract, and actually it transpires that the contract is entirely ChatGPT generated and actually doesn't provide any legal protections whatsoever and is just effectively a giant hallucination. Or it looks quite good and it's maybe 50% of the way there, but some really critical key terms are missed. But obviously the way it reads is so persuasive that actually, you might not recognize that without some legal training. So obviously there's the considerations for service businesses as well about to what extent do you use AI and to what extent do you then disclose that to your clients and say, look, what we're actually doing is we're doing a hybrid of AI plus expert, and therefore you're getting a much more cost-effective and efficient output. But to what extent are you disclosing that to your clients, and to what extent is that work product supervised by humans because of obviously the liability questions that we touched on at the beginning. And then making sure, as I've said before, that you have got that human in the loop angle of all of your automated data processing when you are thinking about decisions which impact customers. So the Legal Director, we are a group of 52 general counsel. So general counsel are senior lawyers who work exclusively within business, so a real differentiator from private practice lawyers, for example, because our team of lawyers have all been business person first, lawyer second. All of our lawyers have at least 10 years experience of working in-house, so embedded within a business as opposed to within a law firm. And we run a variety of different cost models, but one of the things that we say is you will never get a bill you're not expecting. So cost certainty is kind of baked to what we do. So that's who we are. Thank you.